Having a wonderful day. Welcome, welcome. It is Sunday, February 8th. Yeah. Made it this way. We're February 8th. My name is Julianne. Thank you for joining me. If you've been here before, you know what we're doing. We're going to look at the week's energy and see what's in store for us. And just look at what's in store for the energy and how to make it through this week of February. There's some nice yelling outside. It's beautiful out here. I'm out in Mississippi. It's a beautiful day. So yeah, hopefully you're having a beautiful day too. But let's get started. And just a reminder, I wanted to remind everybody that I do have a February PDF out. If you do want to check it out, it is Stabilize the Shift. And what is great, it goes over, you'll see it on the digital download. I've got the link in the thing. Just click on it and you can just purchase it from the YouTube store there. And 5-6 pages, it tells you about the moons and essentially the whole things for the month. So get that now, or there will be one that comes up. I'm going to be doing a new one for March, as well as a 6-month prescriptive guidance on how to make it through March to April. So stay tuned for that. Hello, Lois. Thank you for joining. I hope you're having a beautiful day. But let's get into it. Let's look at the week overall. So we're going from this Sunday, the 8th, to February the 15th, next Sunday. So what we're going to feel overall for the energy is noticing pressure and adjusting expectations before moving forward. So this week is not about building momentum. It is about clearing space. Okay, so pressure, recalibrate from the pressure, and then steady footing going forward. So that's the idea. So really we're going to find beginning of the week is the emotional release. About midweek is perspective, we're starting to change. And by the end of the week, it's clearer, grounded, going more forward. So that's the summary of kind of how we're going to flow through the week. So let's go through today. Today and tomorrow, so Sunday and Monday, so the 8th and 9th of February. We're moving from sensitivity into expression. So that's our universal numerology 2 to 3. So we've got awareness, attunement, start to go into communication, movement, and creative output. So what we're going to see with the numerology is the shift from the 2 to 3 is about noticing what we need to take care of and then honest expression to follow. So it's about becoming aware of what we're maybe not paying attention to that needs some TLC, right? And then continuing with that. That's what the numerology supports. The elements for Sunday, Monday, we're going from water and to air. So the water brings, of course, awareness, balance, mental processing, and perception. The water brings our truth, our emotional truth, balance, and release. So with the water, we're finding what's not in balance, right? That same theme is still, again, what's out of balance, what needs to be taken care of first. And then the water is asking for the emotional less releasing. It's like the honest expression to follow. So the numerology and the elements are pretty much saying the same kind of idea. Now, as we move through Sunday and Monday into the astrology end, the Vedic moon, so the sidereal moon is in Libra today, going into Scorpio. So what we're going to see on that end is our emotional body is focusing on balances, fairness, relational awareness. But internal pressure builds beneath the surface. So we're feeling like there's a pressure. So what it might look like on the outside, we might be feeling very different, right? There's a lot of pressure underneath. What will be accommodated for harmony's sake will feel heavier. So what that means is if you have a situation where you've constantly just either looked the other way or just been like, kind of brushing it off to the side, it's going to feel heavier. It's like those situations that we've either accommodated or kind of enforced harmony on are going to be heavy, and it's going to be harder to sedate them with continued soothing and emotional whatever we've been doing to distract ourselves from dealing with it, right? Because what Scorpio is going to do is it's about deeper emotional truth. So honesty rather than soothing things that we just kept in harmony for the sake that have never been in harmony, right? So that is going to come up. So in your own life, that's going to be very apparent. What have you been ignoring that, or just been like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's not that bad. Oh my God, the famous last words. Oh, it's not that bad. That's how our society runs. It's not that bad. I've heard that so much. It is that bad. Honesty needs to look at things. And we can't keep pretending it's not. It's going to feel worse to put that label. It's not that bad, right? So the next thing, we go into the Western collective for this week. So we've got tropical moon in Scorpio, and that brings emotional intensity, which attunes inwards towards truth, depth, and what has been left unspoken. So the same kind of idea, right? This placement supports emotional detox, awareness of power dynamics in confronting what is real instead of what is comfortable. So same kind of idea again. Is this really a problem? And now it might not be comfortable to constantly be like, oh, it's not a big deal. We'll just pretend it doesn't happen, right? So with both Western and Vedic astrologies, when we come to it now, we need to deal with what's uncomfortable. We can't just let it or pretend like it's not as bad as it is. Okay. So that is really becoming the apparent trend, especially for Sunday, Monday. Overall, it's relational awareness meets emotional truth. So how we relate in this reality and the actual truth of it. We've got the Vedic Libra, which is about balance, but we're also challenged for the need for the honesty, right? The honesty is a big thing coming up, which is the Western Scorpio part. So we're favoring noticing where peace has been maintained at the expense of truth, right? Let me say that again. We're noticing where peace has been maintained. So that's at, deeper accommodating harmony. So peace has been maintained. Truth has been the victim to maintain that peace. So instead of actually truthfully, this is a problem, we've allowed this problem to continue on and become really a ginormous, there you go, I can speak English, ginormous elephant in the room that is now taking away space, and we're like running out of room and we're getting squished, right? So the truth is what has been sacrificed, right? So the truth is we have no space. Push that elephant out, right? So overall, for this week, we're recognizing emotional imbalance, choosing awareness, and regulation over reaction. So sometimes it might be that, we need the truth more than we need the comfort at this moment. Comfort can happen with truth, but it needs to be based, right? Like comfort will happen when we get the truth and everything like that, but that's a whole evolution. As we go through the week, Monday, what we might see today and tomorrow on the collective is more sensitivity and a lot of emotional undercurrents. You can kind of see that. I came across a video today that was all about the housing crisis in Canada. And I worked in banking a number of years ago, but we've never been in this situation. Somebody was explaining something I didn't necessarily know because I worked for a smaller lender. I didn't work for one of the big financial institutes in Canada, which I'm really happy I didn't, now understanding what is happening and how we're going to go through a part where a bunch of people in Canada are going to get mortgage renewals and their banks are just going to say they're not going to renew them. And it's going to be such a problem and a hard cliff. And a lot of people won't talk about it because this was what somebody was bringing up, is everyone gets this private letter. No one's talking about it on social media because we have this problem where we think we're the only ones suffering, right? So instead of sharing our experience and building a movement, because we're probably all going through some variation of this corruption issue, whatever it is, instead of sharing it, we think it as a public shame, like getting a letter that your mortgage won't renew, but you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't lose it. You didn't miss any payments. You didn't do anything. The value devalued. And now the bank is saying, oh, you're a risk because even though you've paid on time, your mortgage is higher than what the new assessed value is. Well, that doesn't help our books because we messed up on the amount of investments we had. So they mess up, which affects you. And so you get the big screw you letter where you can't renew your mortgage. And it is not a good scenario that can happen because your second level may not take you because they'll go based on the assessed value now. And if everything's assessed, they'll only do 80%. So you can't even get a new mortgage lender. And then you're forced into sale. And it's very different in Canada than it is in the US. It can be a month or two, you're out homeless and you owe the difference between what they sold your property and what you owed on debt. So they sell your property, you owe 900, they sell it for 800, you still owe 100, you're out of a home and they can steal your money. Good times. And that's coming down the work. So what I'm saying about this, especially on the collective for today and tomorrow, emotional undercurrents, start talking truthfully. This is the big thing. Like if you have a scenario and get a letter like this, you're probably not the only one. We need to talk about this. The fact that we take shame and don't talk about things publicly and openly, we can't really fix things, or at least go back and force those banks to keep their bad debt. Because what they're going to do, the government is going to save the bank. They're going to let you, the person, lose everything. That's how it's set up. It's set up. The truth is, the system set up for you, the individual, to lose, the corporations to win, and it really is very much like that. So we might see a lot more sensitivity and emotional undercurrents for today and tomorrow, the 9th. Less tolerance of superficial harmony. So again, it's not real harmony. You're faking that you're getting along. You can tell. We all can tell. We have that inherent knowledge. You're just going to be like, that is so fake. Like, go away. I'm done. A desire to slow decisions and reassess priorities. So again, maybe slowing, taking a step back. We have been rushed through a lot of things and had very much about instant a lot. So this is a good time at this point, balancing out, slow down, reassess, right? And then also on the collective, what we might see for today, the 8th, and Monday, the 9th, is more privacy, more need for privacy and emotional space. Maybe process the stuff that we have been not being truthful with ourselves about keeping harmony versus actually dealing with that situation, because, you didn't really want to do it, right? I get it. I know when we don't want to deal with things because we think it's going to be more work, or we just don't want to, right? Whatever really stops us. I get that. It's taking the steps to get over the things that we don't want to deal with, right? Now, on the personal, what we might imagine for today and tomorrow is emotionally aware, but not ready to act. So we're becoming more aware of these things, but we're not actually maybe taking the steps yet. So that might be even just an acknowledgement of whatever that emotional situation that we've accommodated for harmony's sake, that we've just kept peace, but has really been at the sacrifice of honesty and integrity. Maybe we're becoming aware of that. Not ready to take steps with it, but we're becoming aware, right? And that is also where it comes into where noticing where compromise has gone too far. That same idea, right? You've compromised, over compromised, right? It is negatively affecting you. And then we may also, in our personal lives, simplify relationships or obligations. So again, that's making things a little bit easier, and a pull towards honesty over people pleasing, right? Like at this point, I get it. We've lived in a world where it's always about pleasing others to get something, right? So we want to stay in the good book. We want to have this persona, whether it's a system, institute, or one-on-one, that we want people to think we're good and invest in us or like us or whatever. We're kind of going to this point where now it's going to be honesty over that, right? Like honesty, like, I don't care if you don't like me. I'm going to tell you honesty. You're draining my energy. You are an energetic vampire. I don't like visiting you. You are not enjoyable in my life, right? Like that is what we are going to start to feel, is just that honesty over people pleasing. So to make it through today, tomorrow, the 8th and 9th, how we might imagine or go through the day, take a pause before you decide to respond. Always good practice, but especially with the emotions and starting to maybe assess situations differently. Take a pause. Take a moment also to notice what is feeling heavy instead of managing it away. So that's that distraction away from the thing that isn't in harmony or peace. Allow truth to surface without forcing a resolution or solution. So you might start to have some of those truths become very apparent. Allow it to come up and be okay that there is maybe no answer. You don't have to force the answer. The answer will come as needed. And the last way to make it through for today and tomorrow is reduce emotional noise and unnecessary engagement. So again, don't put yourself where you don't need to be. Like if it doesn't feel good and you don't want to go to that event or whatever, don't do it, right? Like just allow yourself to keep it cool and be on the down low if you need to. So today and tomorrow is really about restoring footing and not solving everything. So we're not solving, we might actually feel like we found more issues and more things that are out of harmony. So it's not about solving them. It's more of restoring the footing and just becoming aware of the things that are happening. Hello, thank you for joining me, Satama Sis. It is morning here too. It is morning. It's beautiful here. I'm up on the Gulf Coast, coast of America, coast of Mexico. I don't know. It's a coast over here. It's beautiful today. Thank you for joining me. And hello, Sanye. I'm going to destroy your last name. My apologies. But hello, welcome. Okay, let's continue. And we're going to continue going through the week. We're looking at Tuesday and Wednesday, the 10th and the 11th. And one other little shout out before I move on, because I want to remind everybody. So I do have that February print off, but what I think is more valuable than any of it, is my Awakened Light app. It is coming along. I'm getting so many more updates and things working. So I've talked about where you get like a message of your day, then you've got like daily, weekly, monthly overviews and stuff like that. Now we've got some really great options with find your best time and location energy. So you can cross-reference yourself with other people for a location. Like what's a good place that would be career based, or you can even put in a specific situation with family members and find out where might be really aligned or just for yourself. And that is now working and it's all up. So it's awesome because you can go to the explore location and then you would select your people here. You put your question and it will give you a rating out of 10 energetically help. I have done an update. Explore a location, discover ideal location. So explore, you can explore specific. Discover is essentially you're like, well, what isn't aligned in this theme? There's a new one coming. Areas to avoid. Some people, I'm actually learning, some people, there are areas that are just not good for you. There's some people that have good areas, bad areas. Some area people have, myself, I'm finding I've got a lot of neutral, lots of neutral. I don't have anything bad and nothing really good. I just kind of exist. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. So that's one of my favorite little updates. Also with the finding time. And when you are on this app, when you put the stuff in, you can add it to a journal. So there's actually this whole journal feature where it'll pre-populate the information and then you can add notes and save it and you can reference it all the time. So that's just some of the updates. There's so much I've gotten working and I'm super excited. And I did have designer issues because then I had to use my program, and I've gotten over quite a few hurdles. We've got the lunars working. We've got with the daily stuff, you've got suggestions for like hertz, musics, chants, exercises. All of that is dynamic. That all works to your date. So when you generate your daily guide, it takes a moment. It loads it up. Depends on how quick. There we go. And then it will review your entire day and all these different energies. So for example, if you're in Vedic and you're into Sanskrit, it gives you the best chant. For me, my Om Shriram Namaha is my chant for today. I go down a little bit more. I've got daily movement, breath work, and then you click into here. It'll tell you the breath work, give you the steps. It'll tell you poses for the morning, the afternoon, and even a reset that is in alignment with your day. So it is an app that I'm super excited about. And what I'm finding, the more I design it, the more I'm like, I want this in an app. I've designed it for something that I've always wanted. You know what? So I don't care if you guys don't go download it. I love using my own app because this is what I've always wanted. Nobody made. So check it out. I do have the information in the description. Go to my website, Breathe Within Yoga. It says apply to be a beta tester. Right now you can get it for free. Try it out. It is coming along and it is a lot of fun. You can get, I'm excited about it. So go try it out. Okay, there's my little spiel. All I can say is I've got to get a really good working ad for it, but I'm not quite ready. I'm not quite ready to sell it. I want to get a few more people testing it to give me feedback on things that, making sure they're running properly, right? Because the way I use it may not be the same way that somebody else may use the app. And it's coming along. It's doing really, really good. I'm very excited. I actually, side note, before I go into Tuesday, Wednesday, this, like a few days ago, I was going through my list of things I was trying to fix, and I was like, everything's working. I've done the biggest part of my hurdle. This location was a big problem. A logical problem I had to really get over in the app was the location identification, and especially cross-referencing multiple charts to give you suggestions was a big logistical hurdle. So I'm very excited about that. So check it out. Go to my website, stay up to date. You can even join my newsletter to be up to date with things like that. Okay, let's continue. And thank you, Lois. I'm glad you love it. I'm glad you're happy with it. The app is coming along and it's getting more streamlined. Every day it's getting a little bit better. And that's the point, right? We are in the stage where progress is the key. It's not about pushing out a product yet, or pushing out any type of end result. We are still in that stage of building. That is really what we're in. And especially this time frame in February. But as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday, so we're coming into the 10th to the 11th. We are universal number numerology 4 to 5. So structure into movement. So it focuses from stabilization, boundaries, and practical order. We're going into flexibility, adjustment, and responsiveness. So what's been clarified? So maybe what we've determined that we've just been keeping at peace or harmony for sakes space. I don't know, for sakes reason, whatever I'm trying to say. it's going to be tested in real life rather than over analyze. So really, whatever you may be thinking might come up Tuesday, Wednesday, the 10th, 11th, it's going to become more apparent of what you've clarified. Like, it might be super apparent that that is an energy waste. You've been saying it's okay that these people have done that, but it really hasn't been. Okay. Now, when we get to the elements, we've got fire into water. So the fire is bringing direction, motivation, forward movement, and vision. Water brings emotional depth, honesty, and internal processing. So water brings the urge to act, to start moving forward, look ahead. Water asks what actions to be formed by emotional truth. So fire's lighting the actions. Water is making more of that conscious choice, right? And what's going to be more in aligned with our truth. So what we'll see on Tuesday, Wednesday in the sidereal Vedic astrology is the moon goes into Scorpio. So it's a collective emotionally, we're seeing deep inward truth focus. A lot of truth keeps coming up this week, very much the theme. This placement supports emotional processing, release, and psychological clarity. So surface explanations are insufficient. What matters more is what is real beneath it. So that seems very appropriate. I was listening to somebody who's being told that people are going to the doctor complaining about issues that they are perceiving and seeing connected to a medicine that was mass adopted through coercion in the early 2020s. And what's happening is many doctors are telling them that it's in their head and then suggesting that they go get a psychological test. So this is what our system's actually doing, is they're gaslighting people that, no, you're not sick, it's in your head. You just are imagining all these symptoms and issues in your body. That is what's happening. Not happening necessarily everybody, but it is something people are talking about now. So that is really the idea of surface explanations aren't sufficient. So you're telling me there's nothing wrong with me. I can physically know my body. I live in it. Something's not right since this happened to me, but you're telling me it's in my mind. That's not gonna go over well. That is not the real truth. We're not gonna have that tolerance to be able to accept that type of BS bullshit. It is, please. Then we've got the Western astrology, which is tropical moon into Sagittarius. So emotionally, we turn towards meaning, perspective, and more towards the future. Where are we going in the future, right? So no desire to understand what recent experience. There is a desire to understand what recently happened and what's pointing to. So again, maybe there was a situation that also overlaps with this peace and harmony we've just been letting happen that is done, right? So we might really be wanting to understand how we ended up there. How did we end up so frustrated from a situation that we thought was beneficial, keeping peace, right? That would be kind of the idea I would think of how that's going to maybe show up. Broader context, reframing, observing, looking from a higher perspective, and rather than staying emotionally entangled and being blamed, right? Because especially if it's something that you're like, man, I should not have done that, or you're blaming yourself, we want to avoid that. Just like last week, like let's get over very much like the scenario. You get a letter that your mortgage can't be renewed, you should be yelling. If you didn't miss any payments and you're a good client, we should be talking about this. What is happening, right? So it is this whole thing about the broader context and taking away the emotional meaning, especially in some of these things, right? Like don't take it personally. It's time to move past it. So what we're going to see is emotional truths meet searching for meaning. The Vedic Scorpio brings depth and honesty. And then the Western Sagittarius seeks understanding and direction. So we're really integrating our emotional insight into clearer intentions without rushing a solution, a resolution, right? So turning emotional insight into perspective while allowing the truth to guide the next step. So again, this is very much the same idea that we're not looking for the answer and the solution still, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're letting it come up. We're not forcing a solution. We're just going to let it come up, but we're more aware of at least the problem, right? So what we might imagine and see on the whole, so out of the collective for Tuesday and Wednesday, the 11th and 12th, more desire to understand experiences, especially emotional experiences we're going through. So more desire to understand them. interesting was I watch a lot of news from China. I find it really interesting, and I follow the China Observer on YouTube. I find it mirrors Canada like so much. It's like where Canadians are ending up and they have no idea. Watching Chinese media is like watching the future of Canada. Like it just mirrors so much of it. It is insane. I thoroughly enjoy it. And it also shows a lot of things that I've heard would come up through Webbot reports of Cliff High. They're showing up in China. They're showing up. Like these things are showing up, these cultural things. So it's interesting because we are like we want to understand emotional experiences. There was a video recently about the precious metals. I haven't seen it for North America. I know people maybe were posting about losses and stuff like that, but I never saw videos like I did from what was being highlighted from China. So they were going on all over social media, and it was aunties, like to call aunties, I being auntie in China, crying about how much they've lost, and it was all about the precious metals market. There was some uncles and some males in it, but it was really ironically, I had re-listened to somebody about report, which was the phrase of, or the time frame of 2015 to 2017, which all matches what's happening in the precious metal market now 10 years later. And there was actually a part about what would be happening specifically in China with aunties and uncles and these emotional outbreaks with the precious metals. So I think it's very interesting because there's a lot of them wondering, and this was the question when I was watching these videos with the China Observer, is why are we having this emotional? What is happening? And they're looking at it logically. They know their money is no value. They know they're not in denial like a lot of Westerners. They know there's no value. They know they're getting the raw end of the stick. They're much more aware than most Westerners are. That's a weird, amazing thing. For so much communism and not allowed to say things, they know what's going on. They're not living in denial, right? So it's interesting because there is a desire collectively, especially Tuesday, Wednesday, to understand these emotional experiences. So maybe it's stock markets for you, maybe it's precious metals, maybe it's cryptos, maybe it's something else, right? But trying to understand that emotional experience. And I can definitely appreciate that because getting into those things, I got in a long, long time ago. Okay. I no longer have emotional. I've seen them go to nothing. I've seen them grow high. I've kind of I consider myself, I'm a hodler. I hold on for dear life. I invest in a little bit to see where we end up. I don't day trade. I don't do that. That's too stressful. There's no emotion anymore. I'm like, everything is manipulated. And that's really emotional experiences on the collective. We're going to have to start to perceive is that most of our collective emotional experiences are manipulated. It's interesting. We're also going to see on the collective less patience for surface level explanations. So like that story of doctors telling you, oh, there's nothing physically wrong with you. It's in your head. It's in your head. That eczema, that rash, that seizure you had, it was in your head. Motivation also returns collectively, but with more discernment. So we want to go forward, but we're not going to just go invest in anything. I think this also overlaps with our intolerance for fake things. And I brought this up last weekend about people over promising things like, why aren't you making $5,000 off of AI? Stuff like that, or like that instant, like this is, disappear for 2 weeks and become the most dangerous AI person using all this software, which has already changed, right? So we want to go forward. We want to create whatever our ideas were, but we want to be discerning. Like the reality is anything that's promising instant or not putting in the effort and the hours is probably not worth your time. You're wasting those hours in something promising you less work, which in the end, you'll have wasted all those hours doing less work to end up having to do the more work in the end, right? So motivation's coming back. Be discerning. What are you putting your motivation into? What are you going to decide to create as the energies start to release, right? We'll also have our focus is shifting collectively Tuesday, Wednesday, from processing to meaning making. So again, maybe we've been processing the things that happened from this Sunday till like Wednesday to try to understand it a little bit deeper. What we'll see on our personal side, Tuesday and Wednesday, is emotionally feeling clearer and ready to reorient. So that motivation coming back. Wanting direction without forcing decisions. So kind of like wanting to see where to go, but not necessarily ready to stand and like put your foot in and dig that hole that this is where you're going to put the supports, right? So we want direction, but we're waiting. Reflecting on the last few days. So again, whatever we're learning, that reflection comes up again. And honesty about personal motivations. So we're really looking at what is our personal motivation? Why are we doing certain things? Is it purely money? Is it purely, satisfying a lack, right? Like, I feel like what comes up is like shopping or food addiction, right? Like, is the honesty the motivation to eat that food or that junk food or have too much? What is that motivation? Is it that you're unhappy? Like, it's that reflecting of what is the true motivation behind the actions, right? And then as we go through Tuesday, Wednesday, how to make it through Tuesday, Wednesday, the 11th and 12th is like, see yourself, imagine yourself taking your emotional insight and bringing it into action, like actual action going forward, not overriding it, not imagining that peace and harmony is going to fix the solution that it never did, right? We're taking informed actions, or at least deciding what actions we're going to take that are based in reality, in truth now, and emotional honesty, right? Move forward in small, flexible steps and seek understanding before committing. So again, if we're knowing things, but we don't see the whole picture, it's just kind of like step back and just allow more clarity to come. It's going to come. And that overlaps with the last part. Allow direction to emerge rather than be forced, which is what I just said. So Tuesday, Wednesday are supporting clarity through meaning, not pressure. So we're not putting on the pressure. It's more meaning, more understanding. We have to change our perspective to go forward. We've been living in not good perspective and not in a truthful emotional reality, right? Okay, let's continue. Let's get into Thursday, Friday. So we're coming into the 12th and 13th. Friday the 13th. Woo! It's a good day. Like, I'm just saying, for the amount of Friday the 13th I've survived and nothing bad has happened. However, I do like watching Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th because I just think, it's the day they're coming for you, right? Gotta have some humor. Okay, so let's start with the numerology for Thursday, Friday. We go from universal numerology 6 to 7, so responsibility into reflection. We also have the focus from care, duty, and tending to what matters into introspection. So evaluation and inner alignment. So external demand softens and attention turns inward towards understanding the truth. So again, just more of that digesting what we've learned. The elements, we have our fire again to earth. There's a lot of fire this week. So we've got motivation, direction, meaning, and forward vision. And then the earth is bringing the structure, the realism, the grounding, and the responsibilities. So again, fire fuels the intention, the purpose, lights it, right? Lights everything up. And earth is stabilizing it, stabilizing the action, setting practical limits, letting it get grounded, right? The astrology. So on the Vedic side, the sidereal moon is in Sagittarius. So collectively, emotional field seeks meaning, perspective again, and forward orientation. We want to kind of see, where are we going forward? I think we're all kind of lost and going, what we see going forward is a little bit confusing, and I don't want to look that way, right? Like, I think, well, I know myself, I'm just living every day. I don't necessarily want to think about the future because based on certain trends may not be where we want to see or be imagining that possibility, right? So the placement supports truth-seeking, honest reflection, and aligning actions with values rather than obligation alone. So that's what the sidereal moon in Sagittarius is doing, is, again, that truth-seeking, honest reflection, and then getting actions with values that are going to assist versus just being obligated to make some difference. Like, you're going to have to, the steps have to exist to assist, right? And then in the Western, we've got the tropical moon from Sagittarius to Capricorn. So focus from big picture understanding into practicality and responsibility. And we also have insights gained during Thursday, Friday, like this week, will be applied, realistically grounded rather than more theoretical. So that's what the Western astrology is supporting, that what we're learning is going to become more relevant in our lives, whatever actions we're taking. So going forward, really, perspective turns to structure. So what we're thinking starts to become the structure. We've got the Vedic Sagittarius. So emphasizing meaning and alignment. The Western Capricorn grounds insight into tangible decisions. And this period favors integrating understanding into clear priorities and realistic plans. So translating insight, ground responsibility without losing purpose. So we're still going forward with purpose, not losing it. So we might make it through Thursday and Friday. Collective ways, we might imagine wanting to clarify priorities, long-term goals. We might also see collectively focus on responsibilities and follow through. Collectively, we're shifting discussions into practical planning. It'd be great if I'd see more governments talking about practical planning, because that's clearly what I don't see a lot of, especially in Canada. We're just going to keep pushing bad things and pretend there's no practicality, right? But we want that. We do. And greater respect for limits and timelines. So that's what we're going to see on the collective, is just, especially Thursday, Fridays, limits and timelines. Like, we're tired of people being allowed to have positions forever. No one should have a job forever. That's how corruption is bred, right? Like, some of these positions that don't have term limits in government positions, ridiculous. Like in Canada, we have a governor general that has no purpose and literally wastes millions of dollars of taxpayer money on luxury trips as this fake position that doesn't do anything, yet ironically has more power than the prime minister of the entire country. So we have a greater respect for limits and timelines as we come through Thursday and Friday. What we might see personally Thursday, Friday, and how we might imagine our lives is we're ready to apply recent insights, things we've learned, ready to take them forward. Structure without rigidity. So we're going forward wanting that structure, but we want it to be flexible. We need flexibility because we don't know where everything's going. We don't. So we don't want it to be rigid and be like, it has to be within these little tiny walls. It's built and it's hard and you only got one way out. No, we need more than one way out. At this point, we're learning we need that flexibility. That's what we want in our personal lives. We're also imagine increased motivation to organize or commit, right? Coming into the weekend, Thursday, Friday. We also personally will be aware of what is worth sustained effort. So more knowing that, okay, maybe this isn't giving us that feedback right away, but it's working and we want to keep putting the effort into it. Now, how to make it through Thursday and Friday, the 12th and 13th? Ground insights into realistic steps. So start making some steps, even if they're baby, just start taking that forward step to what you want to create or continuing to build what you've been building that is giving you that little bit of feedback that's working, right? Honor, meaning, and responsibility. That's a big thing. So be responsible for your actions and what that actually means, right? And commit only to what can be sustained, right? So if this doesn't seem like sustainable, like it's like, all I can think of is, I'm going to do a 24-hour marathon running. And is that sustainable? If that's not sustainable in your life, that you can stay awake for 24 hours and run, don't do it. Like, that seems extreme. But to make it through Thursday, Friday, only commit to what you can actually do. If it doesn't seem realistic, you don't have to deny. Maybe you can help them a bit, but be like, just say you can't commit. You don't have the time, the energy, or whatever. And so as we make it through Thursday, Friday, we're supporting building something solid from recent understandings, right? So whatever we're getting a little bit more clarity on, we're starting to build it. So now we're starting to get that, okay, we're going to flatten out before we dig, right? Okay, let's finish. So when we come back the 15th, so we're going to look at the weekend, the 14th and 15th, Valentine's, and then next Sunday, the 15th, do join me, same time, 11:11 Eastern, 8:11 Pacific. Took me a moment to remember what time that was. We come live and we'll look at the 15th till the 21st, 22nd, whatever that is, 7 days. That's the Sunday to the Sunday. Okay, so Saturday, Sunday, we've got numerology 8 to 9. So effort into completion moves from execution, authority, responsibility into release. Closure and integration. What has required sustained effort will ask to be completed or consciously released. So that is what we're looking at numerologically Saturday, Sunday. So we're releasing and integrating, taking that responsibility. The elements are air and earth. So air is bringing our perspective, detachment, clarity, getting a better view. And the earth is, again, that structure, realism, responsibility. Okay, we're flattening this out. Can we take on the responsibility to start digging that hole, right? So air creates distance for clear thinking, gives us that space, even if it's just in our mind, to think about something, to observe it. And then the earth stabilizes whatever we observe. So as earth falls away, clarity and release take priority. So that's where we're going to see that development. On the astrology, the Vedic, we're seeing the sidereal moon moving to Capricorn, from Capricorn to Aquarius from Saturday to Sunday. So this is an emotional body transition from duty, structure, obligation into detachment, perspective, and future orientation. So pressure to maintain control softens. So we're making room for a bigger view and to let go of that emotional load, right? So maybe it's the people, the aunties in China crying about their loss in their precious metals, right? Or the emotional load of your whatever. Everything's dropped. Your property's dropped. Stocks have dropped. Crypto, everything is dropped. Everything, the only thing going up is food. So if you got a grocery store, cha-ching, until you have morals and don't want to take advantage of people. But that is where we're sitting, right? Like we are making room for lightening that emotional load of being, okay, everything sucks. We're all there. There is the handful that are calling the shots are the only ones not there. All the rest of us are there in different variations of this shit show of life happening to us. And the fact that we don't want to talk about it, or we find ourselves uncomfortable about things that are being forced into us, and we take that it's only us. It's not only us. We are not the only ones that things are happening to anymore. And you can definitely, if you are observant, you will see other people putting out messages that sound like what you're going through. Maybe not the same, but that is the energy, right? So we're making room. It's time to get rid of that emotional load, especially as we come through the weekend. In the tropical Western astrology, we're in Aquarius. So it's a focus on objectivity, independence, and clarity. So again, no tolerance for emotional heaviness and a stronger desire to step back and reassess, observe rather than engage deeply. So again, because we want to get that emotional lightness, like it's mentioned, we don't want that heaviness. That is definitely not what we want to bring into the weekend. So responsibility gives way to a perspective, and the Vedic Capricorn completes its work of structure and accountability, while the Western Aquarius emphasizes detachment, clarity, where this period is favoring stepping back, releasing what is complete, and gaining a higher level view before the next cycle. So really, release, letting go, just constant clearing crap we don't need. We have so much crap. This is literally, I feel like we're always cycling through having to get rid of stuff. And just when you think you've gotten rid of stuff, there's some more crap you pull out. And you're like, just when you think you've learned the end of the crap, and you've helped and you feel and you're healing and you're moving through these other crap things, new crap that you didn't even know you had, or didn't even know was traumatizing or was attached, or a bad belief is there. And then you're like, holy crap. Now that I've removed all this, now I can clearly see this little other one that was hidden behind all this other crap, right? So anyways, we're removing that crap. Let's just summarize it. It's time to remove the crap. Remove the crap to find the new crap that we haven't dealt with. There we go. Completion, detachment, and preparing for renewal, right? That is the energy for the weekend. So what we might imagine seeing on the collective this weekend is a desire to wrap up responsibilities, just finishing up things, closing chapters, finishing up with, especially something we've agreed to on a more collective scale. Less emotional entanglement. So we don't want to be entangled. We don't want to be, we've had our emotions pulled so much. Like, I don't know about you guys, like I cry a lot, especially since these 2020s. There's been so many dark emotional days. I feel like I've cried so much in my life, and I could just to talk about certain things that have happened will make me cry, right? So we want that entanglement to be gone. We're done. We need to get past this. We're all traumatized for the last 5 years. We really are. We're traumatized, everyone, in different ways. Going through the weekend is focus on what is finished what is finished versus what continues, right? So just finishing up those things. Other things are continuing in the background, but just kind of more that emphasize that we're ending it, right? Just closing it up. And again, if there's some emotional attachment, it's like ending and closing those emotional attachments. We are also pulled towards clarity and simplicity. That's what we want. We want an easy, simple weekend. Before we get through the personal and prescriptive, because I just remembered, please do like, share, and subscribe so then you can be updated when we do go live next Sunday to look at next week. So don't forget, please do. It does help the algorithms. And we got to appease the AI bosses. Please, AI, let people see that I exist. So help me appease the AI goddesses. Like, share, subscribe. Okay, on that, how we're going to make it through the weekend. Saturday, Sunday. Personally, what we might imagine, ready to let something end. Again, that endings weekend, we're ending a lot. Desire for space, distance, quiet. Again, that just giving ourselves that mental space, right? Same theme. Maybe not as much interest in emotional processing because we've done so much. So it might be an emotional thing, but we're just like, no, I'm too tired to emotionally. I can't even think. I don't care. I'm just emotionally don't care right now. Even though maybe 2 days ago you were crying about it, right? You're just not interested. Nah. And a clear sense of what no longer needs energy. So you're like, and I can't waste my energy on this anymore. And then to make it through the weekend, to make it through next weekend till we meet again, what you want to imagine is that you have completed what is ready to end. Even if it is an emotional, physical, more metaphysical thing, maybe it's an actual real thing. That is the thing. Anything you can end, even if it's just something like a checklist that the last 2 things haven't gotten done, right? Complete what is ready to end. Release the obligations. They have run their course. There's obligations you don't need to hold on to anymore. And that might be related to the peace for the sake of peace, right? So it makes me think of like a family situation. I keep thinking of like, oh, just be nice to your brother or your auntie or this person because they are having a hard time through whatever it is, right? And now that's ran its course. It's been years of appeasing this person's emotional instability or issues or whatever. It's ran its course. That would be the way that's what comes to me. So if that helps with any clarity on what that is, I feel like that's going to be that obligation. We don't need to be obligated to tiptoe around Auntie Jen or my brother or whatever because they're upset and this bothers them, right? It's time to move on. We're not obligated to do it. And step back to gain perspective. The more we can step back, and this does come with something I talked about a couple weeks ago about sometimes we have to really try to shift our perspective to try to see from another person's perspective, right? So putting ourselves in their shoes. So maybe Aunt Jen that we've always been appeasing for to keep peace, maybe we take a moment and go into her perspective of what it's like to be traumatized in the way she was or whatever that situation was and see if we can get a little more clarity. It doesn't mean it justifies that this has been pushed and we've appeased peace for too long on it, but it will help gain a bigger perspective, right? So that will help you make it through the weekend, is just attempt to gain a higher view, like looking from the outside that you're not in the drama, right? And allow closure without forcing new beginnings. So just let things go. And if there's not something that immediately shows up to replace it, it's okay. Let what naturally comes to fill it to come up. And what comes up first is a job. So maybe you lost a job. There's so many people losing jobs. Like we're completely through where income you had. I've heard people where they've been self-employed. They have 12 different types of income and 2 are making money now. 10 have like literally just dissolved. You could be in a job and now you don't have a job, right? Like this is the theme that is happening, right? So if that stuff's happening, allow those things to close without necessarily, it's going to be uncomfortable, but be okay that there might not be something immediately there to fill it. There might not be a job. There may not be another opportunity that can immediately supplement those other 10 opportunities of income that are no longer paying off. It's allow those things to kind of close, be aware, but be open for the new things that are coming in because there's going to be so many, and there already is like little murmurings of where the possibilities are going to come for the future. You have to be open and aware and allow those opportunities to come to you, and the more present and the more we remove our emotional damage, and we can release the emotional damage and the layers of it, the more primed will be to get our energetics in alignment to be allowing to have stuff come to us that we need to assist us. And I'd like to talk that. Doesn't mean I mastered it. So do not think I've mastered that in any way, shape, or form, okay? I'm working through this too. So working through the weekend, these days are about completion and clearing space before renewal. So it's just about bringing that space before we go forward into renewed. Because when we get into this mid-month, because we're coming into the mid-month, like this is now this time where we're going into, especially after the 15th onwards, some crazy alignments. It is going to feel more like, I think it's going to feel more like the new year, and it's more like we're actually at a new, right? But we're also coming into spring too. So that I always think our calendar systems are wrong because they aren't. They're not really energetically aligned to how we truly function, right? So really, we're coming into the new year. That's what's happening. So overview of the week, emotional truths, pressure is recognized, and we focus on reducing it. Later in the week, kind of midweek to later, we're simplifying decisions, instructions, and boundaries. So again, it's threshold, a lot of clarity, a lot of realization, a lot of working through heavy stuff, not necessarily a breakthrough. And the highest priority is really stability before expansion, clarity before commitment, capacity before production. So it's really just getting ourselves stable before we can have productive expansion and commitment, because we're not there yet. And it's a collective. It is a systemic thing. We're not there that the capacity, stability, and clarity is fully aligned to assist most of us. It's just not there yet. And so we need all of these things to come in line. And that's the priority in our own personal life, and that we're also going to see reflected in really as we come. So what can I realistically carry forward is the question for this week. And if you can't bring it forward, that is the stuff that it's time to emotionally remove. The emotional damage must be removed. Not saying it's easy, and I'm not going to say you're perfected it and that you're like, ooh, all emotional damage is gone because I believed it. It's a process, right? Like everything takes time and energy to heal. Let's mow the lawn together. Hello, thank you for commenting. You know what? The negativity, I'm not going to lie. The negativity, I am definitely somebody who is, the glass is not only half empty, it is literally got a hole. It's cracking. It's dripping. There is no way to fix the hole on top of the leaking glass. So I get it. The negativity, there is so much more negative that we can focus on than positive. And I can definitely appreciate how much of a struggle it is to find the positives. But it's also, we're going through a time too where we can't force fake positivity. We just can't. You can't, this would be almost like the idea of like, forcing peace for the sake of it. So we're forcing positivity for the sake of it. We can't really live in it because it's not truthful. It's not truthful positivity. It's not going to sustain or really help, right? So it's about us really healing the things that are negative and having to spread a light. Why does it feel so negative? Start to review and then work at that. I wish there was an easy way, but it is this deeper process of reflecting, becoming aware, noticing what are those things that you're really negative about. There's probably themes, right? And then see, okay, what are the positives in these negatives? Because there's usually something that is of good even with them, right? Even if it's negative. Now you might come to a few things that you come into where you're like, I cannot see a positive. And maybe you journal it, maybe you note it, maybe you visually or voice dictate it and you note it. Because maybe once you get out of that emotional, especially if you're feeling bad at that time, because it's even easier to be more negative when you're not in a good mood. When you step out of that mood, you might be, oh, now I see this as a little bit more of a positive, right? Versus the negative it was. Because there's a lot of things that I've been learning with my own charts where I'm like, God, it's so awful. Why are my charts so weird compared to everybody else? Like my charts are really weird comparative to everybody else. And there's a couple things I'm like, this is just brutal in my charts. Like this is emotional damage on excess, right? And I'm just sitting there going, this is insane. I hate my charts. Why am I doing this? And I have my emotional thing. And then, whatever, move past, because at some, you get back to normal, calm, whatever, you continue. Something happens and I go, oh, okay, I see how it sucks, but I see how it also has helped me because of this limitation or whatever, I'm not easy for people to manipulate. Because I have this difficulty that doesn't make it easy for this to come and this, but it also doesn't make it easy for somebody to do this to you. Okay, there's a little bit of positive, right? So sometimes it's not necessarily digging at that moment, but like kind of stepping away for that perspective. You know what? let's mow the lawn together. That sounds like when you get those energetic periods of where it seems to come in threes because people will hit them and it's like 1, 2, 3. That energetic alignment. The one thing we do know, it will not happen again. Statistically, it's impossible to have that much bad go wrong in that short a period like that again. So you're never going to have that repeat again. So there's the positive, is that can never repeat again. Doesn't mean it can't mimic or have a certain feeling like that, but it is that thing where emotionally we are being challenged. We are being challenged, and it's going to be finding what we can. So it's like, okay, well, dealing emotionally with having to do something you didn't necessarily want to do first. Okay, got one level. Then you have a health issue. So you got this new emotional level, another one. And then having another level that can affect your career emotional thing. So you're getting it in multiple levels. It's going to feel very, very overwhelming and consuming. I would love to give you some, like, it's not, but it's going to. Be okay with it. Be okay with it. Because anybody, and in the scenario, if I was in that, because I know I've had scenarios, not in that, but where it's one thing, and we each have it. I'm not happy. I'm not necessarily in a good mental place. That's okay. Be okay with the emotions that come up. Be okay with it. Be okay with sadness, mourning, things that are going wrong, being okay with it. Let yourself have that emotional outlet, because once you can at least have them, then it can start to give you some space to go in with more clarity. I think for a lot of us, we've been taught to reject emotions or cover them up with positivity instead of going into that emotion and feeling that emotion, which actually does more harm to us, because it's almost like living in denial versus our body has to physically go through the same thing our mind does. It does. It has to. Our mind and body are not separate. So if we have something emotional, our body might be showing it as well, because sometimes, especially with health things, will be because of the emotion, but it does all work together. So you have to let your body emotionally let go of that stuff. And then it's also maybe the reflection. Maybe the reflection is that this might be a calling, not to replace that, but maybe there's something new to come in, especially in the career you're in. Maybe that's what this story is. You're going to know in your own life what that's going to point to for your own story, right? And I'd say, I'd love to be like, woo, you just go be positive. That's not going to work. You're going to have to do the work emotionally, let the emotions go through. I'm not selling anything, because I'm not selling this app, but I would recommend Mow the Lawn. Go to my website. It's in the description. Go apply to be a beta tester, and I will get you set up on this, because this will give you a lot of insights. One of the big things it'll do is, like, especially when you start going into the weeks and themes and stuff like that, it'll help give you some guidance, right? And you can actually ask certain questions about that alignment that might really start to give you a different perspective, especially if you're having a lot of things that you are perceiving, because everything's perception, right? Like, I agree. I'm not going to say any of the things that happen to you are positive. They're not. So you perceive these as negative. I would agree that they're negative, but sometimes we have to see a different perspective or see a possibility in the future that energies change. So understanding that right now, this energetic, the first word comes trap. It's almost like an energetic trap you're stuck in, right? This energetic trap kind of got you. All these things have happened to you. It's to push up. It's kind of to push you. It's really to force you into some major changes. That would be how I'd see it. It's not comfortable. The divine consciousness, God, your angels, they're not there. And they're not saying, oh, this is going to be comfortable. It's deal with this now. You're out of alignment. You're going to, this pile has happened. You got to figure this out. And that is really the calling of us evolving, is what are we being presented with that is making us have to be called out and do something different, right? So that'll be the reflection. And that would be my recommendation, because be okay with it, track it, voice dictate your emotions, look at perspectives, go join the app, see if you can use that. That app has got so many tools that can just help change the way you see things, because it's looking at your personal charts. And the more you know about things that are outside of your control, like how the alignments happen when you're born have nothing to do with you, and like that, in that you can control, but they have a huge effect in your life that you may not even have known, and been like, oh, wow, that makes so much more sense, right? Because it's naturally in tune. And then it can help alleviate that. Maybe this pile of stuff happening is because you're out of alignment, completely out of alignment. And life is like, we're forcing you to do something different. Now, of course, you get the choice of what you do, right? And that is where we have free will. What are we going to do with it? Are we going to double down and go into the darkness? Are we going to start to pull ourselves up? Are we going to start to fix our lives? Like, what are we going to do? And we can deny things, we can prolong pain, we can reduce pain. Those are our own choices, right? Well, and fair enough, let's mow the lawn together. It everything will at some point get better. That is actually it's just like the idea that the only thing that is real is that guaranteed is change. Change is the only thing guaranteed. The only thing you can ever guarantee in life, at some point things will change. So that is true. It will never be the same, and at some point it will get better because you will have to have adjusted to the things that you have done. When, how long, we don't know. We don't know. But can we alleviate and make our lives less painful? We need to find the tools that are going to work for us. And each of us have different things that are going to work because we're each so different, right? So breath work, chanting, meditation, maybe connecting with some kind of spiritual practice, using astrology, any little tool that starts to help give you levity and a different perspective, or just forces you into a different frame of mind, even temporarily, helps us continue to get back to that levity, because it is hard. It is really hard, and there isn't an easy way out. And I really dislike people. Like, I've gone through this. I'm still going through it, or I'm constantly evolving, good times and bad times in my life, right? But I've always been like, the people like, oh, it's positive thinking. Huh? I'm like, oh my God. That doesn't even come naturally to me, right? Like, I can't positive think myself out of a box. I can take positive actions. I can start to change my perspective. I can learn more that actually ingrain and change the way I see my life, which then changes my perspective, which can give me more peace, right? But fake positivity is as bad as like really lower energy, right? Because it's not true and it's not sustainable. Yes, life will get easier, life will get better, because it's always seasons, always periods. We don't know, and it can feel long and draining and brutal. However, it will change, and that is true. And if that is what helps you get through it, wonderful. If the idea that this will end at some point, great. But I have to make a comment on that, because doing my charts, like I said, and complaining about my own charts, I complain about my own. I've been in a very stagnant part of my charts for going in now 6 years. Okay. So I have the worst Saturn alignment you can get hit me in 2023. But prior to that, because of the systemic life we were in with COVID and what happened from 2020 onwards, I legitimately got an extended period because of systemically life changed so badly in my life, from the things that were forced into my life or removed from my life from things I had no control of, that it legitimately made this period feel like it started in 2020 and I am still in it now. Where everybody would get like maybe a couple years, most people actually get like a couple months. I already had a long time with like a 2 to 3 year period that got extended from life circumstances. And it was systemic, and there's nothing I could do about it. It's the fact of how things have worked. But the systemic things that worked in life have forced me to a certain point that this point has seemed more brutal than normal, because I was already trying to force change through a lot of things I didn't like. And then when I got this chart, this beautiful magical alignment of astrology, which actually has made it that it's very difficult for me to get feedback. So things I used to do don't work now. Nothing works. They're just not allowed to work. I'm just not allowed to get real feedback. The way I made money don't work. The reason I survive now is because I have my husband, and that I had a little bit of foresight to prepare in the future, because I saw things were weird before 2020 and I stockpiled and prepared things. So the only reason we're in not as worse a position than I could be is because I had foresight to prep a bit. So we're living off of prepping supplies. Like, I look at it and I go, this is insane. And I didn't know what I didn't know till now. Now I'm reviewing and looking and going, wow, this has made my life. No wonder I feel like this has been so extremely long and brutal, and that I've been punished, right? So there is a lot to learn about how we fit in this reality, and our charts and who we are do help. And so it is one of those things like learning how to figure out to be in alignment with who we really are, right? What is our natural tendencies? One of the things I'm learning with astrology is not everybody gets affected, like I mentioned this earlier, by location. Like amazing. So it's weird that there's a whole industry of astrocartography, astrocartography, or however you say that, just on location. Whole industry, people making apps on this based on location that people struggle with, because I've had that feedback that people don't understand these apps that don't actually apply to a lot of people. A lot of people, location may not be as big of a thing as it is. Some people, it's a huge thing, but there's a good portion, there's like 25% of the population, which myself is included, where you don't have bad areas, but you also don't really have any good areas. So you're just kind of like, you just get to float around. Didn't know that. Had no idea. I thought it was actually a more important thing. Well, for other people, it might be, not necessarily for me. Then there's other people where timing is much more important in their charts. So that showed up in my husband. My husband's all about timing. Timing is huge in his charts. Not me. Timing doesn't matter. So it's just very interesting on the more you start to learn things that I feel we have been systematically kept from learning. If I knew what I know now about myself and my charts and things I did, would have been so empowering as a younger person versus what I fought with trying to be normal in a system, but realizing none of my abilities, skills, and personality would ever work in that field. No wonder I was no wonder I wasted years doing things that weren't in alignment, because we do what we're culturally normalized to. We might show a little bit of a tendency to be good in a certain area. We go in it, and then we bubble or identify with it, yet it doesn't fill our soul because it was never really purposely aligned. That was my experience I was in banking, and I thought it was great. I did. I'm not gonna lie. Got good pay. That was the pay. The pay was wonderful. But what ended up happening over the 5 years I was in there, I kept promoting, kept getting better, kept getting more money, kept doing better in the system, okay? Comes to a point where when you're so out of alignment, even the money can't keep you in alignment. I had so many weird things happen. Can't even. That's a whole other video I could go on with how many things had to happen to push me into essentially leaving my job. It was the best thing that happened, because it was like I had to emotionally break down, have an identity crisis, had to have like the worst possible situation to force me to leave my corporate job to actually go forward. And it all aligned with my Neptune, Jupiter, Pluto alignment of having to have my spiritual being pushed into a spiritual evolution. So I look at it now and I go, oh my God, that was meant to be. It was meant to be. I was going to have hurdle after hurdle after hurdle that was going to force me that this is where we have free will. We have free will that we can keep meeting those hurdles and fight them and deny what we're really feeling. Oh, I love this job. No, I love the money. I don't love this job. It doesn't make my heart feel filled every day. It doesn't sing and make me go, woo, I want to get out of bed and go and help people. No, I like the money. Right. And that was a level of a lie that I lived at until situation after situation after situation just blew up. It was a mental fuckery of all that made me have a breakdown, which forced me to take new actions, which were more aligned than I was before. So that's how I feel life does work, is that we do have the freedom of choice on what we do. The universe, consciousness, charts, the divine has a plan for us. There is a chart. Charts are your plan. Like there is a plan for where we're supposed to go. We don't have to follow them. And when we're not following them is really when most of the things kind of happen. Or we might be following them, but now it's time to change, right? So I went through a period from like 2010 to 2020, huge amount of growth. Things were easy. Everything seemed to just work. So it was like I got through that disalignment, which forced me through this major change, which was like a 10-year period. When I got to the end of that is when we hit the 2020, and then I hit this new change. So I'm in this new struggle of learning something different, which is closing things that I didn't close or learn in that last transit. So now I'm going through it now, which by the time I get into 2030, I've get into that new, more of a golden age. So I have these cycles, right? That's how my charts show up. So I have to accept things that we do have the freedom of what we do in movement, but there is certain things that some things are going to be harder to do. If you really want to gain traction, but that's right now is not a traction time, you're never going to gain traction. You can fight it. You can put $1 million into something, but if it's not aligned for you to be successful, you're not going to do it. Vice versa, if something's aligned, it'll totally just keep showing up. It'll keep forcing you until you acknowledge it. And I think that's really how life feeds us back, is we are culturally out of alignment. That's what the feedback is. The feedback is the system is breaking. The feedback is humans have to start to catch up with the fact that we're so out of alignment. Where are you out of alignment? You've been feeding that energy of out of alignment. That's why we're consciously and in this mass out of alignment, right? So now it is every single one of us having to heal ourselves and choose our own better direction personally. Because yes, I see and reflect on the collective. I can't affect the collective. I can affect myself, and affecting myself will affect the collective. Feel out of alignment, learn from the failure. Well, you do learn from failure. That is true. And that is part of the reasons we have these experiences, is we're allowed to do things and we're supposed to learn from them, which the learning is to push us back into an alignment. It is. So like I was thinking I was more in alignment from 2010 to 2020. I had everything together to then be like pushed through this whole thing systemically, which I had no control over. And then there we go. I was denied right there. Cut out. I lost where I was going. But there was a certain level of where, I could not get past that hurdle, because there was a new level of learning. That's what I'm pointing out. New level of learning that I'm being forced to learn through Saturn. And in fairness, I keep learning things that I'm like, wow, I should have put that together. Right? Dead cold. Yeah, do lawn work. You know what? I get that. Let's mow together. You go back to the things that help you. Movement and a distraction, right? So you're mowing, you're doing landscaping, whatever you're kind of doing, shoveling or whatever, that can keep you distracted. I get that. Fitness was my key out of that. I doubled down. I went out of the banking industry into yoga, and I have used yoga as a coping mechanism that no longer actually even works as a coping mechanism. It was a coping mechanism that doesn't even work as a coping mechanism. I have to do more to get it, because I'm evolving past it. It's fantastic. I love yoga. I still do it, but it doesn't work the same way anymore as I've evolved. So I have to work and perceive things at a different level. So what I found in myself is how I used to cope with things. So when I was a banker, I did gym. Fitness kept me sane. Moving the body would help move the energy. So I doubled down, because I was a little bit of a personal trainer for a brief period, went into banking. Fitness was my tool. Fitness stopped working. I was so mentally out of it that one of my friends said I was the healthiest sick person. I was so healthy, eating well, working out, but I was always sick. And that was when I was working in banking, because it was out of alignment. I was so out of alignment. And then when I was forced to change. I was forced because I remember having this breakdown when I was on stress leave of, if I'm not a banker, who am I? And then I remember thinking that was the most crazy thought ever. You don't just not exist when you're not specific role. And then I remember going, man, I'm so out of alignment. If I identify so much with this persona of Julianne as the banker, like somehow my whole value matters about being a banker. That was the learning. The learning was I still have value. I still matter. Doesn't matter what my job is. The role, yeah, it might keep me sustaining life. It gives me money so I can work in this culture and, have a roof over my head. But that is not my purpose, right? And I am not a banker. I am not a personal trainer. I am not a yoga. I'm not a counselor. I am Julianne. I'm a human that has an inherent value of existing just like everybody else. And we get so tied to labels, attachments, and that's what makes us unhappy as well. It does, because we also get very attached to fake things like numbers in your bank account, right? Because they're not real. The reality is most of the money you've ever come across in your life, you've never physically handled. Never. You never had every single dollar you've ever made physically touch you. It went to your bank account. You never physically had it. It wasn't even really physically real. And so we have this like whole thing where money is energy. It is. And our energy with money as a culture is out of whack. It is out of whack. And I think that's what we're learning, right? That's why assets aren't holding, and especially assets that aren't really valuable are not going to come back to having value. Fiat is never going to have real intrinsic value again unless it's changed to actually have an inherent value again, right? That is gone. Fiat doesn't have value. Stocks do not have value. That is perception based. Mutual funds are perception based. They You can be bet against. They want you to put your life savings into mutual funds, and they convince you it is oh, mutual funds balances you out so you don't get too much risk. But really, it's for them to make money. You don't make money. They call in those stocks. You have no claim to any stock. You don't even physically own a stock, right? That might be more legitimate than actual mutual funds, is if you could physically get a stock for it. But let's go down. Like a silver piece of paper stock is not a silver ounce. You have a stock, you want that money, okay? Silver, let's say it's worth $50, right? You have this 50, you supposedly own this silver stock. You want your $50 fiat from it. You're not going to get it. You're not, because there's no inherent value of it. You have a piece of silver with the $50, you can go and get the value of it, right? Like inherently somebody will usually barter with you at a level, right? Now, just kind of gone off topic, but the idea is what we're changing with our perspectives, right? So that is the goal. It's this emotional release, changing perspectives, and evolving. So evolving how we deal with the things that are harsh, right? So like how we usually cope right now, maybe it's the time of the year, maybe it's just not possible for whatever reason to use it, or maybe it's just not working the same way. Now we have to adapt. We're being called to adapt. And that is the time we're in, is really this push to adapt, change. Exactly. Times change everything, and everything is going to adapt, right? And then unfortunately, sometimes even if you think you're in something that's very, very stable, it's like I was mentioning the China Observer, that I love watching these episodes. Find it so mirrors. They openly talk about their problems. There's so much more truth in China than there is in North America. I find it amazing, these videos that I'm watching of people being honest about what they're seeing, right? And how the time changes and how their perspective is changing, right? So there was a point to that. I don't know, I lost. Oh my God, too many points that are all on that. But let's pull for the day as I see if I can remember my point with the times changing. Oh, guaranteed income, right? So again, how you might think you're stable, how you might think you've got this guarantee, you might think you've got your home, you might think you have whatever nest egg, whatever illusion you think you have of a safety net. I unfortunately am going to burst the bubble that there is no safety net. There's not. It's all an illusion, because they were talking about one industry, which is like, it's their tobacco and liquor industry. And I guess their tobacco industry really took off in the 90s. Like, it was really, you could not fail if you open these tobacco shops. And they're explaining how they're designed in China and all that stuff. And now they're just closing. I guess at the peak, there was 5 million of these type of shops in China, and now like they've lost hundreds of thousands last year. They're again thinking like 300,000 of these shops are gonna disappear. So what was considered legitimately like an excellent investment, a guaranteed wealth to be essentially inheritance wealth that you can, this business you establish, you can give to your child, has now become that is not a truth anymore. So it was a truth for a temporary period of time, from like the 1990s till just before the 2020s. So you got like a 30 years where it gave them this illusion that this was a secure, guaranteed, stable place to invest in, that'll always be. And now it's not. So that is what we're learning too, is that anything you thought was going to be stable asset, that was going to, no matter every other thing is going to go to crap, this is guaranteed. We're kind of at that time that there is no guarantee, right? Like, it doesn't guarantee anything is going to hold value now. Whether it'll come back in the end, that's a whole other thing. What will truly have value will come back in value after this cycle of purge goes through. But that is how this stuff really changes, right? Is that there is nothing stable. And that is why, my February PDF is stabilize the shift. We are stabilizing through the shift because we do want stability, and we want to feel grounded in a time that has not a lot that we can really hold on to. There isn't. There is a few things, but it's not the stability we've been comfortable with. And I think that's also why that's affecting emotionally on top of that. And then if you're lucky enough to have just wonderful charts, you get bang, 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 because you're being forced to do some kind of reflection, some kind of change, some kind of difference in your life. Like something is either being exposed to be dealt with, to be changed, to be illuminated. There's a reason. There is a reason. But let's pull our wisdom card. How to make it through this week. What is the energy? What is the energy for this week? And our best little suggestion as we go through. Inspiration. Inspiration flows from the right brain. So attune to that part of your conscious links. That conscious links you into the ocean of wisdom. Okay, let me try this sentence again. Inspiration flows from the right brain. So attuning to that part of your consciousness links you to the ocean of wisdom. So when we get into that right brain, we're getting into the consciousness, the collective consciousness. There you can move into your unbound self and you can access unique creative ideas which set you free. This is what we're talking about. We want to start to have more stability, but we don't want boundaries, right? We talked about it for this week, right? New ideas and concepts are waiting to come through. I said that we're in this time of change. There's going to be lots of new ideas that are going to really take off. We just got to make it, right? We just got to make it to that point. So new ideas and concepts are waiting to come through. Do not be limited by logical and rational left brain thinking. And it's probably also the brain thinking that's making you most unhappy, right? Because if you're logicking it out, it's not going to make logical sense, right? You will inspire those around you and expand your personal and life business. I am open to inspiration. So I feel like that is the perfect theme to end on as you go through the week. Keep inspiration behind it. So as we're purging, as we're going through this emotional awareness, as we're deciding what we need to stop making peace with for the sake of peace because we're sacrificing truth, all of these things, keep that inspiration behind you. Be inspired. Again, not to stop doing those things that you're still creating that are getting, you might not be getting full traction. It's not the time to go forward with momentum. It is that background build time, right? So just keep kind of pushing away at the things you're building. Be inspired. Be open to the things that are inspiring around you. If you hear something that's like kind of triggers you, go into that. Take those little positive moments. That's a positive leap to go to. If you're hearing something into an alternative energy, like I have been so interested in 0 point energy and free energy for years. The amount of people that have made it and invented it is amazing. It's amazing. All these forms that are so magical, and then the people that invent them just disappear and die. Like it's just so magically random, right? But there's going to be a lot of potential that is going to come into our reality, into fruition. So if you can find an opportunity into that, hearing for opportunities, like that's just an example that I know will happen. It will happen in my lifetime. Don't know when exactly, but it is going to happen in my lifetime. So we're going through this massive change, and we need to just be open. And if we are stuck in that lower vibration, which it's going to happen. We're all going through emotional. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of things pulling us, a lot of things that aren't stable and are forcing us to be changed, which are probably not making us happy, and maybe even very judgmental on ourselves. We have to go through that emotion without fighting it, because if we deny it, it almost adds more burden, barrier, and difficulty, right? So we have to emotionally accept, let it go through, and then allow ourselves to take steps to clarity. And as I mentioned, like it will help you to go and become a beta test, come and be an awakened light beta test app tester. Come and try it out. Come get some clarity. It is free. You're going to get your soul map, which is your purpose. Plus you get the daily, the weekly, the monthly. You can ask questions about best times. I've got the best timing. I've got a place where you can ask for locations, and you can cross-reference with multiple people. So if you want to know you with somebody else and a location, it is all working. I'm getting it working. I've got more features that I want to add in, but I've finally got it stable and it's working well. So if you're interested, go and to my website, breathewithinyoga.com. It is in the link, the description there. Apply to be a beta tester, or send me an email and I will just add you to that, because you can go add yourself. You can go find it if you want, but I'm not going to give you access to everything if you don't let me know you want to be a beta tester. Then I'll give you free access. So anyways, last olive. Go become a beta tester, try it out, have it as another tool to assist during this time. On that, don't forget to like and share on your way out as we end for today. And I will see everybody again, same time next week, 8:11 a.m. Pacific, 11:11 Eastern. And we will look at the 15th to the 21st, 27th, whatever that ends up being. I think it's the 22nd. We will look at that week and find out what the energy and where we're going from there. So I intend you're going to have a wonderful week, and do reach out if you're feeling confused. We have to start looking for different ways to heal, and knowing who we are and where we're meant to go has really helped me. I'm ready to move beyond surface healing. Like, what is my purpose? Where do I go? Where do I put my energy? If you want to join me, I'll see you here next week. We're going to continue. Have a great one. I love you guys, and I wish you the best. We'll see you next week.